Hi everyone. We'll just give folks a chance to get into the stream. Just give us a second. Can everyone hear me okay? Check 1, 2. Give me a thumbs up. Yes. Mada, thank you. Wow, this is a cool turnout. All right. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Discord Office Hours. This is the reboot series in celebration of Max 9, and it's been a whole week, a whole entire week since we released Max 9 into the wild, and it's been really incredible to see the amazing work that everyone's been doing. We thought to celebrate Max 9 that we would have a series of focused events for the next several weeks. And today we have our first guest, Rob Ramirez. Rob is the lead engineer on Jitter. He makes it all happen. Him and a team of great guys. Really excited to have Rob here today to walk us through some Jitter stuff. So we'll primarily be focusing on Jitter today. Next week we have other focused events. So just at the top of the hour, I'll mention we'll have a little Q&A session at the end with Rob. So if you have a specific question, you can ask it at the end, or you can just type it in the chat as we're going along, and I'll try to keep tabs on the different questions. There's also a few of the other Jitter engineers I see who have come along, so they may be able to answer questions as we're going along. Rob, welcome to Discord Office Hours.
Thanks.
It's
Hey, everybody.
good to have you here. How are you feeling after a week of Max 9 being in the wild?
Oh, did Max 9 get released?
Did Max 9 get released? I don't know. I believe so from what I've seen on Instagram.
Felt like a lifetime ago. I'm feeling good. I think it's a fantastic release. We got some great stuff in it. So far, gotten some pretty good feedback, and I'm really excited to just hopefully what we can do with this chat is start providing some groundwork for people to really start digging in and exploring some of these new features, because I know some of them are going to be a little unfamiliar even for the seasoned Jitter users. So hopefully hopefully we can kind of get into some of that. Oh, I'm going through the Zoom. I've got my mic on Discord muted. Is that correct?
That's correct. I did just turn you up a little bit. It should be up. I'm hesitant to completely max you out, but I'm very loud. I can turn myself down. Okay, I've turned myself down a little bit, and Rob should be a little clearer now,
Am I any clearer now?
or you should be louder at least.
Am I any louder now? Oh, yes.
Okay, thanks, folks.
Live
The
mixing.
the Discord stream dance is always one that can. It's always it's unfortunate. It's hard to set it and forget it.
Do it live.
Needs to be tweaked every week. Yeah. Okay, Rob. Is there something in particular you'd like to show first? I mean, we've had a lot of changes in Jitter. This is one of the most, well, as far as I recall, one of the biggest Jitter updates in a long time in terms of like, it felt like everything got touched to me. It pretty much
Yeah.
did, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those updates where, yeah, a lot of areas got touched, and it's also interesting. I'm I'm hoping to get into. I'm not sure what we'll have time for, but I'd like to get into some of the functionality that's not jitter specific, but that really improves quality of life for Jitter users. So something like embeddable text files is like such a low key feature, but man, it's going to change the experience of doing stuff with Jitter tremendously. So I'm hoping to show a little bit of that. But then, yeah, we got some big kind of marquee features like geometry is the big one. A whole, if anyone's paid attention, it's a whole new patch cord. So that does not happen very frequently. So I guess the last time we had a patch cord, it was MC, and so we've got Big Red going right now.
Yeah, I really
Uh,
like the big red patch code, to be honest. I don't know why. I'm just like, it makes me very happy to see a big red patch code. I don't know. It's something psychological there, perhaps.
well, I'll
Um,
tell you, I nailed that color from like just randomly picked those numbers, and that's where we landed, and it's we stuck with it, and
that
it's
seems very Max-like, though, to just randomly find the color and stick with it. I like that. Um,
right.
yeah, jitter geometry is just mind blowing. I mean, I haven't barely scratched the surface. There's so many possibilities there, and it's definitely one of those things where with the patch that shows off jitter geometry that's on the website. If I'll post it here in a second, if folks haven't seen it, but I just lined up several. I just lined up several jitter geometry objects and made a little system to turn them on and off, and I was pleasantly surprised every time by the results, or like surprised. Um, and it's the thing that keeps me at max is that happy accident possibility of new frontiers explored, found, experimented. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was one of my goals as far as my part in the design of this stuff is really facilitating happy accidents with these new tools, which is sort of a interesting kind of framework to try and um, program for. So you have this very explicit kind of like geometry operations that that do very specific things, and there's like a paradigm, existing paradigms that are well known, and then there's sort of this like weird max space of like, okay, how do we make these like, I don't hate to use the overused word, but fun and conducive to happy accidents and things like that. And a big part of that is trying to make sure they don't crash every time you move a patch cord. And we're still working on it, but we're getting there. So yeah, definitely happy accidents and kind of more kind of like flow based patching. I just want to give a quick shout out. I don't know who's in the chat, but I do see Mateo here. So just for the Jitter team, this is the first release where Jitter is not just Rob's mucking around in his Rob cave. We had a team this time around, which was tremendous. Most of you probably know Federico, amazing Max Federico. He busted out these JIT UI objects, which we'll take a peek at. Matteo Marson is another one that I'm sure a lot of people have encountered in this group. Tremendous amount of work from Matteo on this, new pass effects and things like that. And also like happens to be the expert geometry user. He has done incredible stuff with geometry. He wrote a couple tutorials that I think folks should check out when they start diving into the geometry space. And then we have two new engineers that were also responsible for a lot of the geometry stuff, and are responsible for a lot of stuff that is on the horizon for us. And we can't really go into too many details, but Matthias and Sam Vargas are other engineers that have been cranking away on Max 9 stuff. So
I mean, the Rob Cave has delivered some pretty incredible jitter stuff over the years. But I am very happy that you have that we have a jitter department now, so to speak, and some serious heavy hitters in there working with you, and I think this release in particular really shows that many hands, like not necessarily light work, but results in some pretty incredible outcomes. Um, there's a lot of uh, user improvements to Jitter. I want to touch on. We'll talk a little bit about Jitter Effects, but a lot of quality of life improvements to older Jitter content that is now more accessible and usable. Um, and yeah, it's very exciting. So should we take a look at Geometry, Rob? Or is
sure.
there something else you'd like to kind of give us a peek at first?
No, I feel like I actually what would make the most sense? Let me just go through some of these uh, kind of smaller features that I just want to touch in before I start like
Yeah, let's do that.
going into like the the weeds, as it were. All right, so share. All right, so my screen is up now, right?
Yeah, everyone see Rob's screen all right? I can
So
see
there's
it
just a few
here.
features that are worth taking a peek at. We have a bunch of new passes, post processing effects, and in particular is this one that's named kind of tersely GI. It stands for global illumination, and that's what you see here. I'm gonna not get too much into the pass effects because I'm sure they're gonna look like garbage on the live stream, so it's kind of pointless. But I encourage people to kind of look at these new pass effects. They are all kind of listed um, in the pass reference page. These last kind of four here are the new ones, and they're super cool. Um, so global illumination was that one. We have this new functionality added to JIT World called transparency, or global transparency, or for the full technical name, weighted blended order independent transparency. And at the toggle of a button, you can now blend transparent objects with depth. That's basically all this is all about. You don't have to do your own kind of sorting and whatnot, or just ignoring depth blended with transparency altogether, which is probably what most people ended up doing. So that's a pretty cool thing. Um,
Yeah,
this
as someone who's pulled their hair out in the past with layers and the likes and depth, this alone is
it
incredible.
it's a very there are like a ton of ways that we could keep exploring that space,
Mm.
especially as we get into uh, especially as let's see, we've kind of hit the limit with what we can do with our current engine, but as our engine advances, we'll be able to do more things with transparency, blending. So this is just kind of the start, but I think it's going to be super useful for people that want that sort of thing. This is a patch Andrew Benson made to explore some of the JIT.effects. So JIT.effects are a whole family of objects that are probably going to be somewhat familiar to Jitter users, but there's also some new ones too. But what we have here is a new, and this is kind of what I was talking about before. This is a new functionality of Max 9 called, I don't even remember what we're calling it, object macros or something like that, defines. But what we have are these little wrappers around V8 shaders, and again, another new Max 9 feature, the V8 engine, or even just straight up slabs. So this is just a slab file, and we have this object that has its own help file, has its own reference, has attributes that you can pull out, has this really awesome param connect functionality, where it I can bind my param connect to any of the attributes in here, and this is another thing that's going to keep getting better as we go. Has its own space in the object browser over here, which is this fantastic new functionality of the patcher window. We have all the jitter effects listed over here. And this patch is just like, super Andrew Benson-y feedback loveliness. Has a little JitGeoPix code box down here, another fantastic Max 9 feature. So I like this patch a lot just because it's like shows a lot of stuff in shows a lot of the new kind of Max 9 stuff. The other quick thing I wanted to peek at, this is Federico's demo of the new Jit.ui objects. So he built this little kind of like video game character builder thing that's all
so cool.
Jit UI. So these are all like objects that you can kind of move around and change properties of, change the layout of, and they're all gonna, they're buttons that do certain things in the patch. So take a peek there. Oh my God, a lot going on. But the other cool thing Federico did for this is he made all of these supported in JavaScript. So you could actually build all of this in a JavaScript if that's something that you're interested in doing. But the Jit UI is a lot of fun. And then we have geometry. So this is a little kind of shape that gets generated. And what else? Thickness I love. This is actually this is a tutorial. This got made into a tutorial, so you can read how this happens. But what we have with geometry is this ability to convert to a dictionary and then process that dictionary in JavaScript. And this is a very simple script. So I think this is a really great tutorial because it shows just a few, what is this, 100 lines, you get this sort of like extrusion functionality. And a lot of the stuff that Matteo is exploring with dictionaries and JavaScript are things that they're basically prototypes for what might be new geometry operators in the future. So there's a little bit of like whatever the term is, dog fooding that we're doing here with the dictionary stuff and the JavaScript stuff, but also just opens the gate to to anybody out there who wants to like dive into this stuff. You have sort of unlimited abilities to muck around with geometry once you start wrapping your head around it.
That particular patch is pretty impressive. It's so cool to see the duck kind of like waving, tiling like that. The first time I saw it, I was like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, and so this is actually something I wanted to get into, and now it's not working. Is that, I've got two of these open. Nope, that was the right one. Is in particular with this duck thing, you can kind of see this happening where we have these sort of different domains of jitter processing going on, and that's a really interesting thing. So we have just a little bit of geometry operators here in conversion to a dictionary. We have this V8 that's processing the geometry. The V8 is actually outputting a matrix, and then the matrix is, with typical matrix tools, being animated and drawn back again with GL, pass effect over here. So these are all sort of like all these different spaces of processing that you're able to do now with Max 9, and that's actually something I wanted to get into a little bit too. If I may, should I just keep plowing through?
Yeah, let's go. I think folks are here to see Jitter, not to hear me
Cool.
talk. So,
So, and again, this stuff is it's all new, so there's still bugs. This is actually I'm in this case I'm using Max 901, so I actually fixed a few bugs while I was working on this stuff. So just a heads up about that. But you know, let's see. I wanted to just build something that kind of touches on all of these things that I was talking about, all these different kind of domains of doing cool stuff. So here we can kind of open help patchers directly from this little browser, which is nice. So this is our new geometry displace thing, which is probably pretty familiar of a concept to people that do stuff with Jitter. You've either done this with Jitter Geomaterial height map, or you've done it with just Jitter Gen directly on a matrix and plugging it into a Jitter mesh. But you get some really nice deformations with the geom displace op. So if I just kind of like take some of this, then paste it in here as a start. What we have is these are a couple of little utilities that we have for our help patches. Geom mesh just has a material that we designed specifically for these help files, and the render has a couple pass effects that we just defined to make things look nice. But you can plug your geometry straight into this geom mesh, and then we need to give it a source. So we here in Jitterland just love our duck. So let's stick with the duck. File.
by the way, the duck has never looked so good. Just when I thought the duck was about to get retired, it's back.
Yeah, I mean, and this is sort of well, we'll look at what the what our geometry operators are really doing and why they're so why they can be so useful. So what you want to do here is, so if we want to take so there's different ways we can start with geometry. We can either use a JitGeom shape, and this gives us, by default, it gives us an icosphere, which is a really useful shape to do stuff with, and we've never had it before. So if I actually turn that to 0, you can see the shape a little bit better.
Nice.
So that's shape, and if we want to instead take a source from one of our many GL geometry objects like Jitter model, of course we want matrix output enabled. We want automatic off because we really only want to bang this out one time, since after we bang it out, it's going to get converted to geometry, and then that's where the processing happens. And once it's converted to geometry, we're in red patch cord land. And another interesting thing that's happening is that we will be processing on a background thread. So it's a little bit different, and there's some new paradigms for patching when you're patching with geometry, and we're still trying to refine all of that. But once I bang it in here, I should be able to get my duck. There it is. And now I need a source, and it can be anything. any matrix input. So I actually, one of the bugs I recently fixed was a report from our one of our favorite dudes, Kevin Cripper of vSynth notoriety. So I figured, like, let's show how we would plug in some vSynth patches into the Displace input. Um, so in order to do that, I have a little snippet that is, I call it vSynth no vSynth. So this allows me to bring vSynth into my a non vSynth kind of context or domain. Like, you typically, when you're doing vSynth stuff, you want to use his whole system, but you don't have to. So if you want to just take a peek at what we can just take a peek at what this is. Um, so basically, we need a node that's named vSynth. We need to send a canvas, LFO. We need to send a regular canvas, and these are just textures at whatever dimension. The canvas is, we can change, we set this dimension at whatever we want. And this LFO is just a 1x1 matrix. We need to send a draw bang. So this is actually a new object, jit bang. And boy, is it cool. It sends out bangs. But what it does is it just binds to JIT world context and allows you to just send bangs wherever you want. The same as like the JIT time, which people should have, is not new, but it's the same kind of concept. You're binding to a context, and you're getting values at synced up with that context, that render context. So
Why we're
the
there
other
too, Rob? There's another one, right? Jit line,
the other one is JIT line, which
new one.
is, you know, you, this has been kind of a mission of mine. Is for a while it was like, okay, use B line instead of line, because you see all these patches out there that use line. I'm sure, Tom, you've probably done it yourself. I know I have, and that's fine. But line is being updated by a separate clock, so you're not going to get smooth animation if you're really paying attention. And so but it's so convenient, and you have this, like, function, this compatibility with whatever this object is, function. And so yeah, so whatever, JIT line is just has the same kind of message interface as the line object, but it's going to send its animation messages in sync with the render. So
One thing I
check that
really
out.
love, I just touch on this, that's so great about Jit line is there's just so many bits of function code out there for
Yeah,
randomizing a function or having a function do this or that. Tons of it in the forums, and then leveraging that with Jitter in this new way is to get weird movements and whatever. Is Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the hidden new, the kind of like secret. What am I trying to say? The underrated heroes
Yeah.
of Max 9, I think. So if I want to grab some vSynth stuff, since I don't really know vSynth that well, I'm going to go to the vSynth launcher. I'm going to grab like this one, and I'm going to just grab this whole thing, actually, except for this. Um, and I can just kind of paste it over here. It's going to find the vSynth subnode that's in this little patch, this little thing here. And that's what it's going to use. I'm going to get rid of this guy. We don't need that. And I need to close this out. And we don't worry about that because there was just a conflict. And I feel like there's probably some improvements we can make with that whole workflow that I might reach out to Kevin about at some point. But it works, and so here we are. This is the source of our displacement. So what we first need to do, I'm just going to put a trigger here. there, and that's my thing. I can actually put a view window there just to see if it's working. Oh, I have to turn this thing on. So this is my little vsynth context, and it takes a toggle, so I'll just put the same toggle on. And and of course it's not working. All right, let me just see why that is. I think it's probably because of that naming conflict, but that did not happen before. Let's just delete this stuff and undo. So maybe this is not giving me. There it is. Something, it needed a load bang or something that didn't get fired. Understandable. So there's our vsynth guy, texture that's looking super crisp, super cool. So what we have to do is, and this might change, but for now, in order to displace geometry, we need to convert to geometry. So we have this operator to geom. And in this particular case, the type of geometry that we're using is a matrix. So this is not a jitter matrix. This is a geometry type matrix, which is different than the geometry, the surface geometry coming out of this operator. And there's going to be different cases where we need matrix type geometry, surface type geometry, and the other type we have currently is points type geometry. So we need matrix type geometry for our displacement. So we're going to go to geom. For now, to geom only takes matrices, so we need to do an async read to convert it to a matrix. No biggie. And then with that, we have our displacement happening, and we want to pop on our amount, or our strength rather, parameter, and then we can see the dots. The other thing that we probably want to do here is bang this texture into, I think, this input here. It says to material. That's what I want. Okay, there it is. So that looks pretty cool.
It's so cool.
But the first thing that we might see is just this kind of like wonkiness here on the wing and on the head, which is just what the duck looks like. This is the geometry of the duck, raw geometry. So one of the most useful geometry ops, and also one of the most expensive, meaning it takes some CPU, but hopefully you can design things in a way that you're not running this op too frequently. Like in this particular case, we can just do it one time, but it's the remesh. So remesh is going to make the geometry uniform. And we can see that is what happened here. But we also see, while things look funky and weird, the reason that things look funky and weird now, even though we kind of see that the geometry is more uniform, and actually, did I leave that functionality here? If I can set this to wireframe, I wonder if that's going to work. This is just a little thing on the wireframe. Well, that's not going to work. Yeah, there it is. So here is before and after remesh. So this is the original geometry, and then this is after the remesh. Okay, but so then the other thing we're seeing is now all of a sudden the texture looks all funky. The reason is because remesh is going to chop your texture coordinates, and you have to use TextGen to get them back. So, one thing to know about this stuff is if you're going to do a bunch of stuff to your model files, you are likely going to lose texture coordinates, especially with some of these ops. Subdivide, I think, will keep texture coordinates. Of, a few of them will, but remesh in particular will lose. So we're going to use TextGen to give us some new texture coordinates. And TextGen supports some different modes. Planar is what we got going on right here. And spherical is another mode that I quite like. But again, we're back to this wonky space. And so this is kind of an interesting thing. We need also to generate normals. So we're going to use the norm gen. This is probably something that will be fixed where we're able to say TextGen needs normals, so just ask for normals, if they're not there. But once we've done that, we can kind of get this kind of spherical texture mapping going. And so that's looking pretty cool. But we might want to do even finer grained, we might want our geometry less chunky. So, the easiest way to do that is I think we want to put the norm gen there and the text gen there, and those go right here. And then I'm going to insert a subdivide. And now we got a little, we got some more we got some more triangles to work with. Let's see if this works. Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you see, and again, all these ops have bypass functionality. So, and it's interesting too, some of them have an iteration, so you can kind of like really easily even go further. We're going to start really losing frame rate if we want to do this all kind of real time, so you have to be careful. But the cool thing is you can design some stuff in real time, and then we have some new tools for doing non-real time, which I hope to get into at the end, where you can just sort of be like, okay, this is non-real time mode, I'm going to bang up my iterations, and all of a sudden you have like all this new geometry. So in any case, we're going to stick with this for now, and it's looking pretty cool. I mean, obviously we can change our what happened? Oh, I got to get out of, yeah, that was weird. Something looks strange to me, but, oh, I know what it is. I need to say this thing has text repeat mode on. That's why this is looking weird to me. There's a PBR object in there. Text repeat. Is it not doing it? Did I spell that right? Text repeat. Huh. I don't know. And then, all right, that's more what I was hoping for. Anyways, I'm about to get rid of this little abstraction anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So okay, so that's cool. The other kind of cool little guy that we've got that I wanted to look at here is this dimples guy. And this thing just kind of like makes these spiky things. And obviously you want to like control it. So now that looks pretty cool. But what I discovered, let me just bring this down, is if you put this before your subdivide, it's pretty wacky.
That's wild. The duck really is looking like this creature that from Doom that Julian just posted.
Yeah. So, like the order that things happen, is going to, obviously, this is max jitter. The order is always important. And yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I was. Oh, and then subdivide actually has a different mode too. I think that kind of changes things a little bit. It's a little weird. No, don't do that. You got to be careful with your iterations. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of that so I'm not tempted. Go back to simple. It's weird. It's very weird. So, okay, so that's cool. And it's doing some fun stuff. What I wanted to show too was like, okay, so, what I was talking about before was like all these different domains of processing. So we've got this texture here coming from desynth. Now let's say I just wanted to smooth things out on this texture. What I would do is go pop in a Jitter.effects. I would pop in a Jitter.effects slide. And that is going to automatically give me some controls for smoothing things via the standard slide down, slide up that we're all familiar with in Max land. So just gonna do like 5 or something, and now all of a sudden, it's a little bit smoother. It's going to be slightly less responsive, but let's bring these back down. Actually, if you go negative, I remember that being kind of cool too. Okay, so you can slide, you can do whatever other kind of processing to this input texture. And then, let's see, the other thing I wanted to talk about, so that's this is sort of our texture domain, this is our geometry domain. We're using this object that's inside this subpatcher called 2Mesh. That's going to bind to a Jitter mesh, and it's going to convert the geometry kind of automatically for the mesh, and the mesh is going to draw exactly what the geometry is telling it to draw. But if you are looking to go further with that geometry in matrix land, you don't have to use this 2Mesh. So what we can do instead is, let's see, do I need anything here? I'm just going to delete this. Is give ourselves a mesh in triangle mode and give ourselves a 2 matrix. And so now this, I think, will just, of course it's not working. Not draw 2. Got to type things right. And then we want to, of course, have our PBR. And I'm going to use material emission. I've been digging using an emission texture for with PBR if you're not doing sort of like environment processing. Actually, I think it needs to be even less than that, but whatever. But we can take our input there and put it into the albedo and the emission, and it gets a kind of
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
It's gone from final boss duck to pump duck. It looks like it's got a mohawk. So
What's
cool.
different now? I don't know what's.
It's got a mohawk at times, at moments.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
So what I'm getting at with this is, okay, so now we're in matrix land. And what can we do in matrix land? Well, we can do all kinds of things. I'm just going to throw this kind of common construct down where you would like kind of do some feedback and maybe slide it and maybe transform it. So let's just like if I say something like this, it's a kind of a feedbacky thing that you would find. Give it a little bit of fade over here, and then what we want to do is give it a little bit of what? I don't know. Maybe just offset or maybe zoom. It's not gonna like, yeah, it's gonna do this wild shit. And then we want to like maybe, again, we need slide down, slide up. I'll just take those there. Maybe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh God.
Whoa.
Let's just bring that up a little bit. Yeah.
That's
And then,
cool.
this may be something we want to put on a toggle or something, and we can kind of like go into and out of this sort of deconstructed duck space. It's just doing a very simple kind of offset. We have rota that's creating this. Can increase that, and that's wild. And then obviously we can still change the properties in the geometry space. That's going to affect things. So
Rob, before the masses ask the question, are you able to save this and share it in the chat when you're done?
I can save it and share it. I can even post the one that I made before that might even be in a better shape, but
Yeah, this is very cool.
deconstructed duck. Yeah, I'll definitely just post this up.
Yeah, thanks,
Um,
mate.
okay, so then the final kind of domain I wanted to explore is the domain of post-processing, which is where GTO pass comes into play. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, just, the typical Bloom HQ is something that we like. Um, and one thing I wanted to show is when you start messing with pass effects, you can get into unclamped texture processing. So what does that mean? Like our texture coming out of here is char type. I think Kevin actually has some tools to adjust this straight from vSynth, but we don't actually need it. That's fine for vSynth. But once we get into materials and post-processing, you can actually get into float 16 or float 32. So the easiest way to do that is just throw in, I'll just start with float 16. That's going to be slightly more efficient while still giving us unclamped. We don't want it on the async read, but we do want it on our textures here. And now it's just going to allow us to go beyond one, basically. So like if I, for instance, wanted to throw in a jit.effects.vercosa here and crank up the brightness of that past, what just happened? Something's not working. Vercosa. Huh. That is very strange. I don't know what just happened. Okay, scratch that. If I wanted to put in a jit.pix here and increase the brightness by some value, we're gonna go old school. Like so, and then say amount increase, And so now we actually have more room to play with because we're in float 16 space. And then what you can do is different things with tone mapping or whatever. But let's say we want to just do a simple bloom. Whoops. Is this pass? I wonder if this passes. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to grab my mesh and my pass and bang that there. And now,
Yeah.
and now we've got our bloom going. Now bloom amount. Bring it down a little bit. Maybe this amount is too much over here. And then, even from here, we could even do more stuff with this texture. Obviously, more feedback or let's see. I somehow have hosed my database. I don't know why. So let's stop here. I think that's, or with this patch, we can stop here. And was there something? Yeah, no, I think that's enough of
No,
kind
that's
of what.
awesome, Rob. I think you've really showing the versatility of the new Jitter objects here and the new add-ons, and then also integrating, existing stuff like Kevin's awesome package, and Jitter Effects. Endless loops of iterations are possible here for new Jitter magic.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Um, cool. I had one other kind of patch along. I don't what are we on time? Or do we want to take some questions now? We want to like open it
Yeah,
up.
I mean, do folks have any? Maybe let's before we move into another patching section. Let's. Did folks have any questions here about what you've just seen Rob do with the duck and pulling together different jitter objects? Any questions? We can take a couple. Structuring with JitGL node has always been erratic, however very handy. Could we also capture this into a different node as a separate module and compose back the final rendering? This is a question from Fraction.
I mean, yeah, it's basically here at this point. In theory, if I added another JTL pass, um, it would latch onto the world, I thought, but sometimes you have to, you have to get into explicit naming. So, like this draw two is what, and this is. So that's actually correct. So yeah. So this is the. So now I'm having a pass, and if I like change the effects name. Something I was looking at before was tone mapping this one. And you can kind of do interesting things, although it seems to be working right now. In theory, this pass is going to affect the world output, but I feel like there's something else going on that I'm not quite sure of. But you kind of hit the limits of implicit naming. And so at that point, you want to just explicitly name everything and you want that kind of level of control. I also just broke JTL Pass. We were looking at something else that was broken, so I think there's something else going on here. So I will make sure that 901 does not have a broken JTL Pass in it. But in theory, this now would be affecting this world output, and this pass is affecting whatever is coming out of the JTL node. So you can absolutely stage this stuff. If that was the question, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think you've answered it well, Rob. And Fraction says thanks. Ned Rush has a question here. When working with JitGeom in 3D space, does it ultimately have to end up at a JitGL mesh, or are there other JitGL examples, if that makes
So
sense?
you, if you want to draw the geometry in GL land, you need to draw it with a GL mesh. I don't think there's any other way, but I mean, it is a matrix. So if you don't want to draw, um, if you, if you, it's just a matrix. So you
Right.
can do whatever you want with the matrix,
You could
but
modify
it's just a
something
matrix of
else, use it
data.
as a modifier for something else, right?
Say that one more time.
You could use it as a modifier for something else instead of running
Sure.
into it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm struggling to think of what, but yeah, I mean, obviously this could be converted into, from matrix we can convert to anything. It's just data. So if we wanted to convert this into some audio signals, we could do it, downsample it, and then plug it into whatever.
Yeah, we could have a hell duck wavetable, hell duck morphine wavetable.
But as far as like drawing the geometry, JITGL mesh is going to be the tool. Whether you're processing matrices before drawing them with the mesh or not, I can't imagine how else you wanted to do it. I mean, we saw in that other patch where it first was converted to a dictionary rather than to a matrix, and that's just jit.geom.toDict, and then processed. That dictionary was processed and then converted to a matrix and then rendered with the mesh. The other thing you can do is with 2Geom, you can actually go back from a dictionary. So this is the simplest half-edge structure that I could think of. It's just a square or quad, whatever. And so that, and then you can subdivide that. And so basically we have a dictionary. This is another one. So we start with some, typical jitter GL geometry. We convert it to half-edge geometry. We subdivide it. We convert it to a dictionary. We basically just go through the vertices and add randomization to it. Nothing super complicated. Then we go back to geometry, and then we add dimples. So that's that process. That's another kind of like workflow that might be interesting to do.
Nice, thanks, Rob. Sabina has a question here. How do we specify to geom to matrix if this is a geometry matrix with 12 or 4 planes matrix? Do we need to specify type?
Well, so
Mateo just answered in the chat actually, but if you
cool. Yeah, I think if I understand the question, both 2Matrix and 2Geom are going to respect the jitter geometry format, the jitter matrix geometry format, which is 3 planes of position, 2 planes of text chords, 3 planes of normals, and I think that's it. I think it's going to not ignore any colors, or at least for now. Colors are typically those last 4 planes if they're there. But the 8-plane format is respected by geometry. It will grab the normals and the text coordinates. As I mentioned, Remesh is going to chop texture coordinates, but other operators will just pass texture coordinates through. And then on the way out, what we have with 2Matrix is, and also 2Geom, are these built-in normal generation is auto normals, and we have this kind of crease angle. Wow, that's wild. Crease angle parameter, which allows you to fade between face normals, and that's kind of cool, and vertex normals at a full 180. So that's your normal kind of generation on the output. And if you don't need normals in your geometry process, it's going to be more efficient to just generate them at the very last stage on the 2 matrix, and you don't have to worry about norm gen. But in this particular case, we needed them for some of the stuff that we were doing. Texture coordinates will just get passed straight through. So that data just is respected.
Nice.
Was that the question?
Yeah, I think that was the question, and I think that's an ideal scenario actually. Nice. Rob, you wanted to show us another little bit of patching. We've just reached the top of the hour now. I think we might stick around another half an hour, so you've got a little bit
All
more
right.
time for patching if you like.
Let's look at. Oh, interesting. A lot of weird stuff going on. Let's look at. Okay, so the other thing that I thought was really worth looking at that might not be so obvious is embedded text and embedded files. So there are. Let me just try and remember what I was trying to show. There are three objects currently that support embedded files. We'll look at JitGL slab and JitGL shader and JitGL pass are the 3 jitter objects that support embedded files. There will be more, I think, down the line, but that's where we're at for now. So I just wanted to show a little bit about what this workflow might look like, and why this is super useful. No, never mind. Sorry. So if I wanted to just kind of get a lot, whatever you want to call it, like a live coding or like a dynamic shader coding thing going on, I'm gonna bang my chickens into a slab, and typically you would have to like open this up and then save it to disk and then and find and make sure you got your file permission paths and everything set. So, but by default now we have 2 things. We have a default slab, which I think we've had before, but we have an embedded slab. So this is now embedded in the patch, and I can do things like edit right out the gate, and like this is just like an inversion or something like that. So this is my shader now that I can sort of do whatever I want with, and it will save with the patch, and here's the edit I made.
Game changer.
And, yeah, I mean, it's like another one of those. Just like this is everything. CodeBox is one of those, and these sort of embedded files. Eventually, we hope to get some idea of a CodeBox for JitGL slab, but there's some real thinking about that we had to do first. So that's why that's not there. But obviously, I think we've already seen pix.codebox. So if you really want to get really embedded in your patch, you're in here like doing this kind of stuff. I'm not the best Pix coder, but I think that's correct syntax. Yeah. So, or if I wanted to just like re-invert it, so I've re-inverted it. But for me, I think I'm more kind of, this is kind of more my speed of, and also just passing patches around. Oh my God, it's gonna be so much easier now. But the other kind of what I think this, what I'm hoping that this sort of opens the door for a little bit more is people exploring JitGL Pass, because now JitGL Pass has a default pass and is also embeddable, so you can kind of mess around here as well. And I think, let's see. So what we have here is, does that zoom in the window when I do that? I don't think it does.
No.
Okay. What we have here is this kind of default pass effect where you are specifying a slab to do this processing. We have one subpass that's an CO additive slab, and we're adding color with an input texture. That input texture is whatever texture you send to the slab itself. So if I sent that slab there, now we have this texture overlaid on top of this texture that's going in here. If I get rid of that, and then give myself a grid shape or something. So there we have the grid shape being captured. I can change this to normals and save. And now, since we're using normals, we actually have to bind to a material. And so there is our normals render overlaid additively with the texture input. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to enable an auto handle. And this is the new transform gizmo that we have, which is a work in progress, but pretty cool. Yeah, that's that. So what would we want to do? Like one thing that might be cool to do is to, like, if you wanted to make your own kind of fog pass using the depth buffer, the depth data from the normals pass. Like, anyone that knows JitGL pass, if you don't, the reference page is where to go. But the normals target has the normals and the depth in the alpha channel. So we can actually use that to build a fog effect really easily. Now, the workflow for like building passes might not be so intuitive right out the gate. You really want to build your pass using just slabs and node, and then kind of convert it into a pass. So, or rather, that's one way to do it. So you can, so what we would do is have a node and grab our node geometry, and then we would say, we would set the capture value of that node manually. And if you set capture to 1, you're just going to get color output. If you set it, so this is the color, and remember this, this is sort of happening outside of this space. Right now, all we're doing is rendering a grid shape. So we're grabbing that grid shape color, right? Set it to 2, then I'm going to get color and normals, and that's what we have here. So, and it's just being combined. So if I wanted to do something with those two things, I would first kind of like split them up, because all this is a list with 2 texture names, the color and the normals. And so what I would do is unjoin and join 2 times. So this is going to give me my color, and this is going to give me, oops, my normals plus depth. So, so what can I do with that? So I can take that and put it into a slab, 2 inputs of a slab, and then I can say I need to add a second input here, in here, and then down here. And so the second input is the normals. So what can I do? I can get the depth by sampling the normals and grabbing the alpha component of that. And make sure, and you're probably going to want to use better names, but this is what it is for now. And then I can use that as this kind of, I can try just like, okay, what happens if I just scale the color by the depth? Let's see what happens. Is that going to do anything? So in theory, we would want it to kind of fade to black or something as it goes to the end. Doesn't seem like it is. Japanese texture, text one. Did I? Okay. Text color dot alpha. Let me see. I'm not sure. One minus depth. This might be a short demo if I can't figure this out. Now it's like totally black. I'm doing something wrong.
Mateus said set depth at 1 when it's equals 0.
Yeah, okay, actually what I wanted to do was, in fact, let's say, vec for, or actually I can use, vec for fog color equals what? Vec for red, we'll just do red for now. And then we're going to say, we're going to mix between the texture and the fog color using the depth. Let's see, is that doing anything? Something's, okay, there's my, that. Don't know what is going on here. This is totally working before, of course. Oh, here we go. And I didn't set the unit properly, so I think that was what, yeah, so here we are.
Nice.
All right, so as we fade out, we go to red. Now, here's the thing. There's now, okay, so basically what we want is, so this is basically what we want, but what's happening is our depth background is wrong, and it's by default black. And actually what we want is it to be white by default, and that will help our effect to look more correct. So we actually, I think we want it to be, we want it to be, or maybe what the hell do we want? Is this what we want? I can't quite remember. Oh yeah, that's what we want. So we want to be able to override this default erase color, which I think is actually 0000, and actually this is what we want, because the depth is only this last parameter here, the 1, and we want that to be white. the 000, these first three numbers are the normals channels, and
Mm.
we're just messing with the depth channel now. We actually want it to be full value by default, and that way we can kind of blend into the background as a kind of fog effect. So this is just like the cheapest, dirtiest fog effect you could ever hope to achieve. Obviously, you want to like put a parameter on for your fog color or whatever, but here is how you would do that with that. So this is like, let's say this is our, we're very happy with this effect. So what we're going to do is file save as. I think I actually have it here. Pass fog. I'll just overwrite it. Why not? And then, so now that's our process. So now we can actually go back into our slab and change that to pass.fog.jxs, and you are going to be dealing with file paths here. So let's just see if that worked. It did. Okay, and we want to give it a color and normals. Okay, and then I think it's working. But what's going to happen is, so basically it's remembering that I sent this value here, but when I kind of like start from scratch on this pass, we're back to where we were, where this is sort of in the wrong state. That erase color value is back to 0000, so the effect is kind of broken. What you can do now, and this is kind of what I was trying to get, the whole point of this is there's this new functionality where you can specify properties of your input sources in this new tag space called inputs, and you can say input source equals normals, and then the property that I'm specifying is erase color equals 0001 instead of 0000. Close out that tag. See what happens. Erase color. It didn't work. That is such a bummer. Did I do it right? And this, what is this path? That actually should be there. So I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. Okay, so something I did wrong. Let's see. Sorry. It needs to be in the pass itself, not the So there we go. So what I've done, and apologies that I can't zoom in. Is there a way to zoom? No. What I've done is specified a input source by the name and then a property. And I can do other things like any other kind of texture attribute you can specify here, like type equals float 32. But also you can override. So every input source can now have different properties, which is cool. And so I fixed my fog effect by specifying that in the past, and then I don't have to worry about those messages to JitGL node. And the thing that you have to keep in mind is that when I've adjusted some property of like a render target, that's going to apply to any other pass that's bound to that render target. So it's just something to keep in mind. Anyways, that was a little nerdy stuff I wanted to say for the end, and sort of an introduction to some of these new pass features. They have yet to be documented. They will be. But this is how we were able to, how Mateo was able to build some of these fancy new effects. The global illumination one, if you're not faint of heart, you can take a look. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this effect, and it's it's just a tremendous amount of work that went into this effect. So
Super cool. Rob, could you drop the fog effect patch and also the one from before? Just a reminder to drop them in the chat.
yeah, absolutely.
Folks, we've got maybe 10 more minutes here. We'll wrap it up at the bottom of the hour. Good time to ask Rob questions. We've got a few of the other Jitter guys here as well as folks from Cycling 74. Good chance to get your questions answered.
So I see. What is the JXP? What is the What is the syntax of this code box? Is it all the same? That's a three different questions. JXP is the Jitter XML pass format, and we've had that since, I don't know, Max 7 or so. But it was kind of hidden away because we didn't have this sort of like, first of all, we didn't have this default pass. We didn't have these embedded passes. So what I was just hoping to showcase is that you can kind of take a look and start exploring what you can do with passes. And passes are just chains of basically slab effects, or you can actually specify a pix gen as the process if you want. And it's able to pull these different render targets from the subnode context. So it's able to pull a color target, a normals target, a velocity target, and there's a few more that we've added since Max 9. So that's a XML format for historical reasons. The syntax of the code box, I'm not sure which one that was referring to. Is it the same throughout all of Max 9? I don't know what that's referring to.
So maybe I think maybe Seagull's asking, is the syntax in Gen code box or the same as maybe Gen code box, and the code box is specific to the area that it's in. So it's going to be
Right.
Gen Exper, or it's going to be Gen Exper, or in V8 code box it's going to be JS.
Yeah. Okay, that must have been when I had that code box open. Yeah, exactly. That was JitGeoPix.codebox. You're going to be writing Gen Exper code. You're going to be writing Jitter Gen Exper code, which is actually very similar to Gen tilde Exper code, but there's different there's some different built-in variables, and that's all documented now in a much better. I think that's, as all documentation in Max 9 is in a much better state than previous versions.
Yeah, it's probably a good time to mention that we have a dedicated page that you can go along to and put your research into. There's a whole new slew of Jitter Geometry tutorials. The Max tutorials have had a revamp. The MSP tutorials have had a revamp. There's a lot of new guides. There's a ton of new stuff in here, folks. You can access it directly from Max via the search. And also, if you just hover off slightly of the search, you'll see a little pop-up that says Show Search Sidebar, and then a documentation topic search, and a window pops up where you can also access this. But you have the docs link there. I just posted in the comments. There's been a ton of work done on this. It's probably the biggest docs revamp in over a decade. Yeah.
Definitely.
And will continue to, as we are able to now update this asynchronously of the Max release, which is huge.
Yeah. So
Balint has a question here, Rob. Documentation on how to set up an NRT rendering with the least possible friction when switching between RT and NRT.
yeah, I mean, I can poke at that real quick if we have some time. I do agree that we need a documentation page, and as Tom just mentioned, the documentation is ongoing, and that's kind of at the top of my list, is to kind of describe that. Although he might have added something, I can't remember. That's what. Can you feel? Oh, look who's in the chat. All right, Matthias is here. So if I may just pop back over here, we'll see how this goes. This might be a bridge too far for us today, but it's pretty straightforward, I think. So if I was going to, let's just open up our patch again. So the key of non-real time in this kind of format that we've got going on right now, this should have a load bang on it. Sorry. And what else happened? This pass is no longer. We'll just get rid of that pass because. And it's a bunch of stuff going on here. And, all right, so it's a little glowy again. Let's just transform, change attributes so we get some glow. What else happened? This should go up a little bit maybe. So let's get that back where we want it. Sure. That's looking fine. So the key to non-real time is if you can control everything via the jit.time objects. And what are those? So there's jit.time, which is going to just be a counter in seconds, not a counter, whatever. It's the time elapsed since you last sent the reset message. All of these are going to have a reset. There is jit.frame count, which is just a counter for frames. And this is actually, I think, going to be super useful for setting up some stuff. There is all the jit.time animators, sign, etc., etc. And then also in this family is jit.anim.path, jit.anim.drive. All of these are going to work for this non-real-time thing. So I think in particular, and then also jit.bang is what you want to use as your banger. I think in particular, jit.frame count, like I said, is going to be useful because it's, you can really trigger things to happen at a frame on the frame, and so whatever. So these are running in real time mode now. So if I had like, and also since here's the cool thing, we did this, right? We did both jit.bang into send draw for our vsense patch and jit.time into send time. So these are all now locked in to the jitter animation system, which is what we want. If I just did something silly like this, and then, scaled it down or whatever, slowed it down, and then if I wanted to say, greater than 100, do something, greater than 1,000, do something like this. However you want to structure these kinds of events, you would do something like this, right? So I would get some bangs happening. These are like two events. Actually, reset, bang, and then at 1,000 frames, we'd get another bang to do something else. Or you could use seconds, but maybe I guess it's the same. Okay, so that's great. What you can do now is go here and set fixed delta to a value, to a non-zero value. And what that's going to do is pull you out of real-time animation mode. And so you can see we're now going slower because I set the fixed delta to some value. So what you want to set the fixed delta to is what you first want to do is lock your frame. If you're preparing yourself for this kind of frame rate capture, you first want to lock your frame rate. You probably want to say sync 0. Whether you do sync 0 or not, I don't think it's going to be different on Mac and Windows, but let's see if that's working. Yeah, so now we're at, and this is our new frame rate counter, which is super cool. Seems like it's not quite 60 for some reason, but that might be because I actually don't know why that is. So maybe I do need sync 0. I can't remember. Okay, there we go. So we're locked at 60 now, and now we're like in real time, and we're recording our parameters or whatever, and we're using our sync points to save parameters. Then what we want to do is say, okay, so since I don't remember exactly what this is, I'm going to say 1 divided. Oh no, what am I trying to do? Sorry. I'm going to go divide by 1. I'm going to put 60 in there, and this is the frame delta for 60 frames a second. So if I go in here and say fixed delta, boom, nothing changed, right? Because I'm already at 50, I'm already at 60, and I am setting the fixed delta to 60. But what I can now do is basically output matrix enable into a jit.record. Make sure I've set this to be however the hell you do this. Write 30 H.264. So I would say write 60 H.264, I guess. Bang that right there. And then here's the last little bit of this puzzle if you're using geometry. You can toggle async mode off so that this is no longer processing in a background thread. It's now processing in the main thread. And therefore, it will allow us to now capture exactly what we want at 60 frames a second when I start banging this out into this JIT record. And as you can see, it's slower now because this is all processing not in the background thread, it's processing in the main thread. What would I do? Sorry, I would do this, test, capture, whatever, and then do that. And we can see all our things are going slower now, like we want. So we have a fixed delta enabled. And then I would say stop, I think. And then I would stop this, and then to clear the fixed delta, you would just set this back to 0, and then you would enable async mode. The trick about the async mode is that every single operator in the patch is going to respond to whatever you set a single operator. So if you put one operator in async mode or async 0, every operator in the patch is going to be in async mode 0. So that's kind of a new paradigm for geometry. Let's see if it actually did something. What is this called? that not where I saved it? Oh, jeez. I don't know. Did I untitled that movie? Let's put this back on, put that back on. Is this coming out? Should probably have a... Yeah, it's coming out. Maybe I didn't do... Only chart type matrices are supported. I don't know why that's not a chart type matrix. That's weird. Maybe because that's actually weird. Don't understand what's going on there. But if I say char for plane, let's see, for plane char, whatever this is, 20 by 1080, and you would want to make sure you set that up correctly. Let's try that one more time. See if it's going to work. All right. Okay. All right. So this is the proper speed that the thing should be rendering at. So there's your non-real-time capture. That's you know what it takes. It's not a one-click solution, but it's a possible solution now. Whereas before we didn't really have any way of just kind of going back and forth between real-time mode and non-real-time mode. So I'm definitely interested to hear feedback on that and ways we can improve that. But I think it's pretty. I think it's going to be pretty useful. You could bang this up to 4K. So super easy. It's all you just set the world size to 4K, or the world dem rather to 4K. You can set it to 120 FPS if you want. You have total control over how that's going to work, and as long as you're controlling everything with your jitter animators, they're going to all sync up. So that's pretty much that.
Nice.
Great. Glad to hear that response rather than that was super confusing and doesn't seem like it's going to help me at all.
There's a lot to digest here, folks. We'll have an upload of this hangout with Rob. It'll be on our YouTube a little bit later today. We'll also share it here in the Discord. But this is a very specific focus to Max 9. I know some of you, even yesterday when we announced this, you were like, "Can you get Rob back later for another time?" Yeah, I'm sure Rob will come and hang again, and we'll probably think a little more about what we would show. Maybe we even ask the crowd before we even have the stream, so we can be very specific. But Rob, this is awesome. It's just so much to digest on this release. I'm sure I know internally we're all still coming to grips with it.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, folks, and I did post it up above, is that we have this new documentation system. We're going to continue to add to this on a regular basis. That's the plan. Keep an eye on announcements in the Discord. Keep an eye on our social media platforms. Each time new stuff's added, we'll let you know. Rob, if you wouldn't mind dropping the patches in the chat
Yes.
here.
Should I just put it in the chat?
Yeah, just put it in here. It sticks around, and I can also reshare the links to the main Jitter thread here in Discord as well.
Right. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, just dump them in. They don't get lost once we finish the call. It's still available. Berlin, good to see you here. Awesome, folks. we're gonna wrap it up. Go and get a coffee or have a nap. Uh, Rob, thanks so much. That was honestly incredible effort. Good to see all that stuff in action, and I always appreciate seeing stuff patched in real time because like we all do it. Yeah, and it's nice to see stuff worked out as we go along.
Sure.
Thanks, mate.
Cool. Thanks a
Rob,
lot, Tom. Thanks,
stick
everybody.
around, Rob, on the Zoom for a second.
Cool.
And folks, we'll catch you next week. Next week at 2 p.m. I believe Pacific. Let me double check that. Yeah, yes, 2 p.m. Pacific. Next Wednesday, November 13th, we have Isabel Kaprisky. Isabel did a lot of the work on the ABL DSP objects. We'll be taking an extensive look at ABL and talking about that new feature in Max 9. So that will be 2 p.m. Pacific time next Wednesday, November 13th. We'll see you back here then. Thanks,
Awesome.
folks. Bye bye.